Robin. Hi.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending the second public meeting for the South Halsted Corridor Enhancement Project. I'm Robin Beeman with Beeman Incorporated, and I'm part of the public involvement consulting team for the project. Please know that this meeting is being recorded and will be shared on the project website at pacebus.com/pulse. Again, pacebus.com/pulse. This project is jointly led by PACE and CTA with the help of a consultant team led by HNTB providing technical expertise. Images and Beeman Incorporated are part of the team to help coordinate public and stakeholder involvement. I'd like to introduce PACE and CTA representatives, project staff, and speakers. Joining us today are PACE Executive Director, Melinda Metzger, CTA's Chief Planning Officer, Mike Connolly, Charlotte Oberzinski, Department Manager in PACE's Priority Project Management Office, and in this role, she oversees PACE Pulse Rapid Transit Program. Emily Drexler, Senior Strategic Partner with CTA, Stephen Brown, Project Manager with HNTB, Jessica Robacek, Community Relations Representative with PACE, and Ashley Walker, Government and Community Relations Liaison with CTA. Before we move on, PACE Executive Director Melinda Metzger and CTA's Chief Planning Officer Mike Connolly would like to provide a few comments. Melinda? Or Mike?
There we go. Sorry, I had trouble unmuting.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to be here today with our partners at CTA to present the latest design concepts for the South Halsted Bus Corridor Enhancement Project. This project is a critical piece of a comprehensive investment in public transportation in the South region. The Halsted Corridor connects two of the busiest transit connections in the region, the 95th and Dan Ryan CTA station and the Harvey Transportation Center. At PACE, our focus is on efficiency, environment, and equity, and we believe that the South Halsted Bus Corridor Enhancement Project works to achieve these goals. In 2021, we saw the first round of the South Suburban service improvements through our partnership with Cook County and Metra with the Fair Transit South Cook project, which boosted the frequency of service on PACE's most heavily utilized route, 352 Halsted. In the coming years, we will implement the Pulse Halsted line, a bus rapid transit service with upgraded amenities and faster service along the Halsted corridor, as well as express service providing connections between Harvey, O'Hare, and the northwest suburbs along the tri-state. The information that we will present tonight is a product of extensive collaboration between PACE and CTA, as well as local stakeholders and project partners at both the Illinois and Chicago Department of Transportation. We look forward to getting your feedback. As this work progresses, PACE is committed to furthering these partnerships to bring high-quality investments in public transportation to Chicago's South Side and our South Suburban communities, creating access opportunities to all across our region. On behalf of PACE, I'm very invested in this project and very excited that we're proceeding on this study. I would like now to introduce Mike Connolly, who is the Chief Planning Officer for CTA. Mike?
Thanks, Melinda. CTA has been working very closely with PACE, and we're excited to share our proposals for improving bus service for our customers along South Halsted Street. The buses on South Halsted provide critical transit services for Chicagoans who are commuting to destinations beyond the far South Side, as well as those who ride the bus to make trips locally. During the height of the pandemic, CTA Route 8A on this corridor was the most resilient bus route in the system, ranking third of all CTA bus routes for most ridership retained on CTA's system compared to before the pandemic. Pace's routes on South Halsted were similarly resilient compared to other transit services throughout the region. Over the recent summer, CTA extended the service hours of Route 8A to midnight, filling in a service gap in South Halsted there between 79th Street and 95th Street that had been identified in an earlier phase of this project as an area that needed immediate improvement. This project, the South Halsted Bus Enhancement Study, is a great complement to CTA's planned extension of the Red Line from the existing terminal at 95th and Dan Ryan all the way to 130th Street. The preferred alignment for the Red Line extension is located a half a mile or more from the Halsted corridor. So bus improvements on South Halsted will complement the rail extension and provide service for transit users with origins and destinations that are west of the planned rail extension. As Melinda said, we are all looking forward to hearing your feedback on the proposed transit improvements for South Halsted. Thanks for being here and thanks for contributing. With that, I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll discuss today's agenda. So we'll first discuss the virtual meeting format. Then we'll share a video providing a brief overview of the project. We'll also provide details on the proposed improvements and share what the next steps are for the project. At the end of the presentation, you will be able to participate in a Q&A session. We will also provide a link to the project website as well as the comment form for you to fill out. And there will also be a call-in number for those that prefer to leave a comment by phone. Next, we'll talk about how to submit a question. So we will answer all questions at the end of the presentation, but you can submit your questions or comments at any time during the presentation by following these steps. At the top of your screen, you should see an icon that says Q&A. Click on that icon, type in your question or comment at the bottom of the Q&A box and submit. We encourage you all to please share your comments. We want to know how you feel about the project, how you feel about the proposed improvements, and its potential impact on the community.
The South Halsted Bus Corridor Enhancement Project.
Right before we see the video, I just want to share the purpose of the meeting today is really to share the progress of the project and present updates to the proposed transit improvements that we discussed at the first public meeting in January 2020. If you didn't attend the first public meeting, it's okay. We'll explain everything that happened, what we presented, the changes that we made based on your feedback, and the input received from agencies and municipalities that we met with after the first meeting. Now, let's see that video.
The South Halsted Bus Corridor Enhancement Project was launched in 2018 to evaluate improvements to the quality and reliability of public transit services along South Halsted Street. The project is led by Pace Suburban Bus and the Chicago Transit Authority, CTA. A consultant team led by HNTB is conducting technical studies and coordinating public outreach efforts. In order to achieve transit improvements on the corridor, an extensive study is being conducted to evaluate potential improvements and environmental impacts. We want your input to ensure the proposed transit improvements meet your needs and the needs of your community. The area being studied consists of approximately 11 miles of South Halsted Street from the Pace Harvey Transportation Center to 79th Street and includes segments of 79th and 95th Streets that provide connections to the CTA Red Line 79th and 95th Dan Ryan stations. The corridor serves the communities of Harvey, Phoenix, Calumet Park, Riverdale, Dixmoor, and the City of Chicago neighborhoods of West Pullman, Morgan Park, Roseland, Washington Heights, and Auburn Gresham. There are many CTA and Pace bus connections as well as connections to Metra's Rock Island Line, Metra Electric Line, and the CTA Red Line. The corridor includes 4 PACE and CTA routes, including PACE's highest ridership route, the 352. Prior to 2020, transit was in high demand in the area, with over 11,600 average weekday boardings. Even at the height of the pandemic, ridership numbers remained high, which highlights how important transit services are to the communities along South Halsted. With transit in high demand in the area, the available bus service and stations could offer a better experience for the community. PACE and CTA found that the average commute times for residents in this area are 20% longer than for the average commuter in Cook County. A major contributor to this problem is the long distances people travel for jobs and bus service that is slowed by heavy traffic, making it harder for buses to stay on schedule. Bus service during the middle of the day and into the evening is also a challenge for riders when fewer buses come by, as well as the lack of bus station seating and protection from the elements. The purpose of the South Halsted Bus Corridor Enhancement Project is to address these needs by improving bus station areas as well as bus speed and schedule reliability. The project will also increase the number of PACE buses coming throughout the day, into the evening, and late at night. The main goals of this project are to improve connections between transit services, reduce the amount of time it takes to reach your destination, and make the bus more reliable so you can count on it. Improve your experience using transit with new, modern stations. Make it easier and safer to walk to and from the station. Provide the community with more travel choices brought by new bus service, and support other community projects and economic development initiatives in the area. The South Halsted Bus Corridor Enhancement Project is following federal guidance to identify, evaluate, and implement transit improvements. The project team has gathered data about transit use in the corridor, evaluated existing conditions, conducted initial stakeholder outreach, and developed initial improvement strategies. In 2019, a more in-depth study was initiated to refine roadway improvements, station locations, and evaluate environmental impacts. Public meetings are also held during this environmental review phase to seek input on the proposed improvements. In future phases, design concepts will be finalized, and construction of the new stations is anticipated to begin in 2024, pending funding for that work. Project improvements and a new Pulse Halsted line are anticipated to launch in 2026. Public input is an important part of creating effective transit services that meet the needs of your community. That is why the South Halsted Bus Corridor Enhancement Project is conducting public meetings to hear your thoughts on the project. Your feedback will help the project team refine the improvements, identify impacts, and find ways to lessen impacts while strengthening the benefits to the community. More detailed information about the project, along with exhibits showing new station locations and amenities, are available at pacebus.com/pulse. A comment form is also available on the project website, where you can share your thoughts and concerns with the project team. We look forward to hearing from you.
All right, thanks for watching the video to get more background information on the project. Again, my name is Charlotte Obazinski, and I am PACE's project manager for this effort. Now we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the progress that's been recently made since we last met with the public back in 2020. Next slide. Sorry, Christina, thanks. As part of this study, we previously held a public meeting, as I said, in January of 2020. And at that meeting, we presented proposed improvements, including new transit stations and roadway improvements, as well as service plans. The information gained from the public was very, very helpful to the team. We received a lot of positive feedback, and the attendees voiced their support for improving the speed, reliability, and comfort of bus service on South Halsted. We also heard concerns, especially about the removal or changes to the planted roadway medians, sidewalks, and parking. We also have met with city and state transportation agencies, elected officials, and local community organizations. Similar to what we heard at the public meetings, there was widespread support to support the quality and schedule reliability of transit service in the corridor. However, there are concerns about how some of the improvements would impact the roadway and the sidewalks. The team was encouraged to reconsider where improvements were most needed and to produce recommendations for those locations in particular. Additionally, the Chicago Department of Transportation encouraged us to find solutions that support the surrounding community and not just those driving through the area, by ensuring that sidewalks and crosswalks for pedestrians are protected and improved. This meant avoiding widening the roadway, which the earlier project design that was shared previously would have done. Many of the concerns that we heard were related to the creation of a dedicated bus lane. While a dedicated bus lane can significantly improve the transit reliability, it requires taking out a travel lane or on-street parking or widening the roadway to add a bus lane. The earlier Halsted proposal would have converted on-street parking in Chicago and converted an existing travel lane in on the suburban stretch of the corridor. Converting parking to a bus lane would have also required us to widen the roadway or narrow the medians, which have many planted trees and add to the streetscape. Taking into account all of the input that was received, the project team decided to take a closer look at how we could improve transit without negatively affecting pedestrians or the overall appearance of the corridor. But to do that, we really had to determine where we could implement improvements that were going to provide the most benefit to our transit riders and have the least impact on sidewalk space, crosswalk lengths, and other traffic. The project team revised the project design and updated our traffic models to address these concerns. The project team reanalyzed the bus speeds to determine where speed improvements could have the largest positive impact on our riders. Out of more than the 70 blocks in the corridor, we ended up identifying around a dozen intersections where buses move the slowest and where we can improve speed and reliability of bus service the most through infrastructure. As we work to develop the updated project design, we also analyzed traffic conditions to ensure that the project would have a positive impact on transit service and that it would not significantly slow down the other traffic in the corridor. As we finalize the design of the project, we're also looking at how it affects the natural and built environment. This analysis includes traffic, air quality, hazardous waste, parks, historic properties, as well as looking into how the project affects people with low incomes and people of color. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Brown from our project team to provide more detail on the current proposed improvements. Thanks.
Thanks, Charlotte. My name is Steve Brown with HNTB. I serve as project manager for the consulting team that's been supporting PACE and CTA on this project. So based on the reanalysis that Charlotte just talked about, the project team revised the list of improvements included in the project, which we're going to share with you next. When we look at a project like this, there are many things to consider. This list that you see on the screen was developed with the help of the Corridor Advisory Group, which consists of local elected officials and municipal staff, along with transportation agencies. Each of the design options and proposed improvements identified in this study were evaluated to determine if it will make bus travel faster and more reliable, what the impacts to traffic, parking, medians, and sidewalks would be, if it will improve safety for pedestrians, and if the improvements are cost effective and if funding opportunities are available. Previous plans for a continuous dedicated bus lane along the entire corridor are no longer being considered. Instead, based on our analysis, we are proposing improvements in locations where buses are slowest and also seeking to improve sidewalks and crosswalks in the area so that the surrounding community benefits in addition to transit riders. The next few slides will describe the improvements that we're now proposing. So first, PACE and CTA are proposing to install transit signal priority throughout the project corridor, which will increase the speed and reliability of all bus routes traveling on Halsted Street. Transit signal priority enables buses to automatically communicate with traffic signals to request a shorter red light or an extended green light. This allows buses that are running late to catch up and stay on schedule. Traffic light times will only change for buses if the change does not significantly interfere with other traffic. As part of these improvements, traffic signals would be coordinated between all intersections, which would improve the flow of traffic for all travelers, not just for buses. The next type of improvement we are proposing is known as a queue jump. Queue jumps provide buses with the ability to bypass traffic at busy intersections. They are short segments of bus lanes paired with special bus-only traffic lights that allow buses to jump ahead of other traffic. Queue jumps require less change to the roadway configuration than a longer dedicated bus lane would. Queue jumps are proposed at the locations where buses move the slowest and where it will not significantly slow down other traffic. And the map on the screen here shows where queue jumps are being proposed. In addition, we identified 2 places along the corridor where short bus-only lanes could be added. These are locations where buses currently move very slowly, where traffic lights are close together, and where bus lanes can get buses through much faster without a major negative impact to other traffic. These bus lanes will be 2 to 3 blocks long and will allow buses to save a lot of time getting through the busiest parts of Halsted Street. Queue jumps and bus lanes are only being proposed in the Chicago portion of the project area. The design of the roadway south of Chicago is narrower and without on-street parking, and has many intersections without lanes designed for left turns. Converting an existing lane to a bus lane in this section of the corridor might create safety issues by preventing motorists from moving out and around people trying to make left turns. This could be fixed by widening the road, but existing traffic levels are reasonably low in the suburbs and do not slow down the bus too much. So the decision was made to not pursue bus lanes or queue jumps. As you'll see later in the presentation, we are proposing other improvements in the suburban part of the project that will benefit customers using PACE service. So here's a location where we will be proposing a bus lane. This is Halsted Street looking north at 98th Place, right where Halsted passes over I-57. Today, this is a very wide and very congested section of Halsted. Buses lose a lot of time stuck in traffic trying to get through this area. Here's the same location with the proposed bus lanes added. This design better organizes the traffic through this busy area while also helping buses to get through more efficiently. The design also adds an island to the middle of the crosswalk at 98th Place, making it safer to cross this busy intersection. Installing the bus lane requires that we reduce the width of the planted medians along the center of Halsted Street. This will require removal of some trees from the median. The project team is looking into where new tree plantings could be made along the bordering sidewalks. There would still be landscaping in the median. Wherever queue jumps and bus lanes occur is really where those trees may be impacted. The project team anticipates the removal of around 50 trees along the 11-mile project corridor, though some of these can be replaced elsewhere along the corridor and, where reasonable, planted nearest to the location from where they were removed, such as on the sidewalk across from the median. This is an example of a location where we're proposing a queue jump. This is Halsted Street at 119th Street, looking north. Today, there are 2 lanes of traffic each way, plus a left turn lane. The lane along the curb is very wide to fit both moving traffic and parked cars. This design means the crosswalk is also very long, making it less pleasant and less safe for pedestrians to cross the street. Here's the same location redesigned to include queue jumps in both directions. The bus uses the new lane reserved for buses and right-turning vehicles along the curb. By having the bus merge with other traffic as it crosses the intersection, we're able to actually extend the curb further into the roadway on the far side of the intersection. This shortens the length of the crosswalk and makes it safer and easier to cross the street. In addition to changes to the design of the roadway, PACE is proposing to add a new premium bus service known as Pulse. Pulse service features a separate fleet of buses that only stop at the most popular destinations, and the service also includes new modern stations that are comfortable and accessible. As this map shows, PACE's Pulse Halsted line, shown as the blue line on the map, will run from the Harvey Transportation Center to the CTA 95th and Dan Ryan Red Line station. New Pulse stations are planned about every half mile at major intersections along Halsted, including both the Chicago portion of the corridor and in the suburban villages of Riverdale, Calumet Park, and Harvey. In the future, Pace will also be adding Pulse service on 95th Street, which will connect with the Halsted line. So here's a look at a typical Pulse station and some of the features of the station. Pulse stations feature heated bus shelters, raised platforms for easier and faster boarding, heated pavement that melts snow, seating, trash receptacles, bike racks, and a large vertical marker with maps and digital screens that inform passengers when the next bus is coming. The shelters can be customized with local artwork, and Pace will work with local officials on developing that custom artwork. Here is the location of another proposed Pulse station, and we are also proposing queue jumps at this intersection. Here, we're looking at the intersection of 95th and Halsted. We're looking southeast towards the Woodson Regional Library. This is the existing condition as it looks today. And this is the same location with the new Pulse stations and queue jumps added. At this intersection, many buses turn from Halsted to 95th Street to reach the 95th Dan Ryan Red Line station. A southbound Pulse station will be constructed along Halsted, and a large eastbound station along 95th Street in front of Woodson Library will serve Pulse Halsted line buses, future Pulse 95th Street line buses, and many local buses as well. At many locations, including this one, the intersection will also be redesigned to extend the sidewalk into the parking lane and shorten the distance that pedestrians have to cross the street. CTA also has proposed improvements for selected bus stops north of 95th Street, where only CTA service is offered. CTA is proposing renovation of its Halsted 79th Street terminal. Improvements will make the terminal safer, more comfortable, and fully accessible to people in wheelchairs. CTA is also proposing to make accessibility and other improvements at some of its existing bus stops north of 95th. Passenger improvements include adding shelters and real-time bus arrival information signs wherever feasible. So with the introduction of Pulse service, there will be more buses coming on Halsted than there are today, especially during midday and evening hours. This will be in addition to bus service increases that Pace and CTA have already introduced over the past few years. Pace local route 352 and CTA routes 8A and 108 will continue to run after Pulse service is added. And the improvements that this project will bring to Halsted Street will mean that all buses move faster, not just Pulse buses. Here's a list of the proposed improvements we've discussed, which, when implemented together, will significantly improve transit service along the project corridor. Transit signal priority and signal optimization, along with queue jumps and short bus lanes, will make bus service faster and more reliable. We also propose bringing the Pulse Rapid Transit service to South Halsted and constructing modern new stations about half-mile apart. Other bus stops will also be upgraded, including a major renovation of the Halsted 79th Street terminal. So with that, I'll turn it over to Emily Drexler with CTA.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the next steps now that we've reviewed the proposed improvements. So after this public meeting, we will work towards completing the environmental review phase, which includes reviewing your input and refining the design concepts further. In addition, we're developing cost estimates and evaluating grant funding opportunities. With this information and an updated design concept, the completed environmental document will be submitted for federal review and approval. While Pace and CTA are leading the project, the environmental documents will be finalized in partnership with the City of Chicago, with the Illinois Department of Transportation, or IDOT, and the federal government. So we also just wanted to talk a little bit about job opportunities at Pace and CTA. This is a little bit, the project is a little bit separate, but we thought that this would be a good opportunity to talk about hiring at the two agencies. So Pace and CTA are currently hiring for a variety of positions. Opportunities at Pace include bus operators and maintenance positions, And CTA has opportunities for bus operators, mechanics, professional, technical, and administrative positions. And contractors will also conduct outreach as part of their hiring processes. CTA and PACE also create opportunities for disadvantaged business enterprises, or DBEs, and small business enterprises, or SBEs, on their contracts, including for design and construction contracts. CTA and PACE also both have programs to support disadvantaged and small businesses, including setting workforce goals and assisting these businesses in the process of getting certified and connecting with other companies. And we just wanted to provide our websites with a little bit more information about these two topics. Please visit our website to learn more about how PACE and CTA offer to support to disadvantaged and small businesses, and for our career opportunities as well. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica to wrap us up and lead us into the Q&A portion.
Thanks, Emily. So the public's input is critical to the process. So before we do proceed to the Q&A session, we'd like to share the public comment form available on our project website. At pacebus.com/pulse, you'll find a comment form to share your thoughts, suggestions, concerns, and questions. We do want to know how you feel about the proposed improvements, concerns you might have, and or any questions you'd like to ask the project team. Comments are always welcome, and those comments received through May 24th, 2022 will become part of the public meeting record. If you would like to leave a comment by phone, you can also call our project hotline at 847-364-3962. And again, if you call that public comment line and leave a comment through May 24th, your comments will be part of the public meeting record. So we'll go ahead and move into the Q&A so our project team can address your questions now. So I know some of you may have waited until after the presentation. So if you haven't submitted any questions yet, you can go ahead and do so now, just using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And just go ahead and type in your question, and we'll go ahead and answer them in the order they're received. So we do want to hear from you today about the information that was presented today. Again, on the screen, you'll see some examples of topics we'd like to hear from you about, such as what you think about the proposed improvements we discussed today. Do you have any concerns about the changes that we plan to make along South Halsted? Again, we'll go ahead and start by reading and answering any questions we've received from attendees via the Q&A feature. And again, if you have not submitted it, please feel free to do so at any time, and we'll go ahead and get to the questions in order. So we'll start with our first question. So it says, our project team mentioned the word study. How long will the study be to determine if the South Halsted project is going to be implemented? Charlotte or Steve, would you like to take that one?
I can go ahead and take that one. So thank you for your question, CJ. So at this point, this project is very important to both of our agencies, and we are committed towards its implementation. As we said, the goal is to have this project implemented by 2026, but that is dependent upon funding. So at this point, both of our agencies are exploring different funding opportunities through the federal programs that are out there. And we're actively, putting together some grants to see how we can make this project a reality. And so, hopefully we'll have some more information to share on that in coming months. And certainly we'll be looking to our community and municipal partners for support in any applications that we put forth.
Thank you, Charlotte. And we do have a follow-up question from CJ Pruitt. Will establishments and or homes need to be raised?
Again, thank you, CJ, for the question. No. The majority of our improvements are completely within the public right-of-way. I think that out of all of the proposed improvements, they're I think there are currently 5 what we're calling sliver easements, so just very small pieces of property, pretty much like within the current sidewalk street realm that we might need to work with local property owners to acquire through an easement process. And so that'll be ongoing as we refine the designs, refine how much square footage will actually be needed, but we do not plan on knocking down any houses or any establishments for this project.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, those small pieces of land are typically like grassy areas right adjacent to the sidewalk that are technically private property, but nothing anywhere near a building, and we would actively avoid any that type of impact.
Thank you, Charlotte and Steve. So our next question is from Alondra Willis. She's asking, so that we did state that it is proposed. When will the public know that this project is going to be implemented?
Again, like once we are able to secure federal funding for this project or other funding means for this project, we will be in constant communication with our constituents. And so to get the most up-to-date information on the project, I would encourage you to sign up for project updates on the Pulse website and check back there continually for other project updates for the implementation timeline.
Thank you, Charlotte. And we had a quick follow-up from CJ. It looks like you did try to use the QR code from the website that we showed, and it's not working for you. So we're going to go ahead and share that link to the comment form in the chat, if we can, to all the attendees. We'll also thank you. If there is an issue, we'll make sure and get with our IT people. It could be an issue of just trying to screenshot a QR code off of a screen. That could certainly be why it maybe isn't working. But we'll of course confirm that the code works. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And our next question is from Christy De Laurentiis. Thank you for attending, Christy. She is asking, can you describe what the decision-making process was for changing, amending, refining the design of the proposed project as described?
Steve, do you want to take that one?
Sure, I'd be happy to. It was really, I would say, a combination of discussions that started with the previous public meeting. So there was a previous phase of study that was done, an earlier planning study that was where the designs were a little bit more conceptual at that point. One of the things that we had when we did this study was we actually went out and did a survey, went out into the field, did a topographic survey, and got a lot more detail on exactly how much space we had to work with. And once we were equipped with that information, it became clear that doing continuous bus lane along the curb, both in the city and in the suburban portion of Halsted Street, that in order to run a continuous bus lane in both directions, we would either have to widen the road and make the sidewalks narrower, or we would have to cut into the landscaped medians. And in fact, probably would have no choice but to widen at the intersections, which is of course kind of the worst place to do that, because that means that you're also affecting people crossing the street. So we presented those trade-offs at the previous public meeting, which it's been a while thanks to COVID, but about 2 years ago when we held that public meeting, we presented that trade-off, and we did hear feedback that said, improving the reliability and transit priority is important, but impacting sidewalks in particular is really undesirable. And then when we met with Chicago DOT staff, we heard exactly the same feedback, that really, doing end-to-end bus lanes throughout the entire corridor and all that widening and the visual impacts of it, the safety impacts of it, it didn't seem like the trade-off was right, that it was correctly balanced. And what we found was, they really, and this is really what Charlotte was talking about in the presentation earlier, So they asked us to sharpen our pencils, and that's what we did. And when we looked at the corridor, what we found was to get the benefit, the travel time benefit in particular, of faster transit service and also more reliable transit service, you don't necessarily need that bus lane for end to end for 11 miles. There is congestion on Halsted, and some areas are quite congested, but not everywhere. It's limited to a handful of major intersections where most of that delay happens, and that we could get most of the benefit with a targeted investment in those intersections. And when we started looking at queue jumps and kind of how you can operate those queue jumps, what we were really looking for was a way where we could get that extra lane in along the curb for the bus to go around the other traffic without having to widen the road. And engineering the queue jumps with that traffic light that allows the bus to move before other people move and merge back into traffic allows us to do that. So we had room to put in that little extra piece of lane without having to widen the road and still get that reliability benefit. I hope that that answered your question, Christy, but please feel free to submit a follow-up if I didn't address it earlier.
I just wanted to add one thing. This is Jennifer Henry from CTA. In parallel with everything that Steve described in terms of getting the feedback that we're getting, we also had refined dimensions for the street that sort of also led us in the same direction, right? Like it had never been the intention to widen the road as part of the plans, right? But it was sort of getting that feedback alongside realizing that we couldn't quite squeeze in the bus lane in the way that we were hoping, with impacting curbs or medians to the degree that it was going to be problematic. So just wanted to clarify that was another stream of information that fed the decision-making process along the way.
Thank you, Jen. So we did have a few more questions come in. Next question is from Igor Studenkov. Hi, Igor. I know we're not seeing you, but thank you for attending. His question is, how has re-engineering affected estimated project costs? I will leave it up to the team on who wants to answer that.
I can field that one if you like. I think you probably want me to. It actually hasn't affected it that much. So the cost estimates that were developed earlier in the project, in that planning study, again, they were fairly conceptual, right? We hadn't done that detailed engineering yet. We didn't have that survey yet. But once we did both redesign the project and also develop a more detailed estimate of the cost, it ended up actually pretty much in the same place.
Thank you, Steve. And I just want to very quickly jump back to your question from Christy De Laurentiis that you answered. She said, thank you for the explanation. So I just wanted to let you know she chatted in on that. Our next question is from Alondra Willis. Had you all considered the safety issues that the operators may incur as we move deeper into the city of Chicago, seeing that PACE has no security for employees? I'll let either Charlotte, or I know we're not changing where we're operating with Pulse or these improvements, but if anyone would like to answer that.
Sure, I'll take it. It's Melinda. Yeah, we have several systems on our buses if there is an emergency to utilize, and you're correct, PACE uses local police and will continue to do so. But the biggest thing is to contact your dispatcher or use your alarms in the vehicles in order to get the proper attention in those circumstances. We're constantly looking for ways to make our system more secure. It's not just our system, it's really all the systems and what we're seeing nationwide. So we'll continue to work with all of our personnel and all of the police departments to continue to secure our systems.
Thank you, Melinda. I don't want to go out of order, but we did have a question very similar come in from CJ Pruitt. How will safety and security be provided to both drivers, commuters? And Melinda did just answer that. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the next person. Andrea Paxton, thank you for joining tonight. It's good to see you're on. Her question is, while PACE is in the funding process of this particular corridor project, are there current improvement plans that are funded and will take place sooner? I kind of want to throw this to Charlotte with all the work we're doing.
I can take that one.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we got a lot of irons in the fire. That's for sure. Also, I think we mentioned this during the presentation today. There is an intersecting pulse line on 95th Street that's going to be operating from Moraine Valley Community College all the way to the 95th Red Line station at Dan Ryan. That project is funded through environmental review all the way through to construction. We have a lot of project partners to thank for the funding on that. Namely, Cook County is funding the environmental review, and we're getting kicked off on that very shortly. And that environmental review, much like the one that we're doing for this one, is federally required to make us eligible for federal funding, which is what we got for design and construction through a CMAQ grant from our partners at CMAP. And so we do anticipate that work will be under design next year and then moving into construction, which would be 2024, and hopefully opening that line in the 25-26 horizon.
And then if I could just jump in and add, so as part of the earlier phase of this project, our planning study, there were some service gaps that were identified between 79th Street and 95th Street on South Halsted that start after about 8:30 p.m. in the evening. So, while this isn't something, I guess, new, we were actually new to upcoming. This is something that we were able to fix over the summer. We were expanded the span on the 8A to go to about midnight, which fixed that service gap. So that was something that CTA was able to implement that came up as through this project process.
Thank you, Emily. It looks like the next question is a CTA question from CJ Pruitt. It says, could the process go back to the way CTA had police details following the bus on certain bus routes like Route 69, 79, or even have officers with the canines on the L platform?
So, CTA is working on security and beefing up security on our system. I'm not sure about.
Hi, sorry.
Go ahead, Ashley. You can
I was
jump in.
having a
Feel
hard
free.
time unmuting so many buttons. But so this is Ashley with CTA. I work in the Government and Community Relations departments. We did have some talks today with local aldermen just regarding our, like Emily said, how we are planning to beef up security. We do have private security that we have deployed out onto our stations and also our buses. But it is a continuous I would say relationship that we do have with CPD, and we are just I will say limited in what we can say, just due to the fact that it is safety and security ultimately does fall to CPD. And they are the ones that are in charge of kind of releasing the numbers in terms of safety and security in the city, and that includes CTA as well. So I kind of hope that answers your question. If you have any more, or if you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact us at feedback@transitchicago.com, or alternatively, everyone can have my email address, and that's awalker@transitchicago.com.
Thank you, Ashley.
No problem.
I want to, again, not skip, but I just want Andrea Paxton, she had asked the question about what is going on right now. Thank you, Charlotte. She said, great news for DBEs and MBEs. Thank you, Andrea. And then it looks like it's not a question, more of a comment from Alondra Willis. Thank you, Melinda. I think this goes back to her initial question about something about diving into Chicago. It doesn't answer her question. CTA has private security, Chicago police, and something about alarm systems not working. That might have to be a conversation that's separate with the division, with our operational staff. I'm not sure how, Melinda, if you want to take that.
Sure, I'll take it. Just a couple comments. We rely on the Chicago Police Department as well as all the police departments in the 6 county area to respond to our situations. We do have private security in a couple of our stations, but we are going to work with the city police as far as on Halsted Street. With regards to the alarm, we do test them, and I'd be happy to direct that to the division, and we can have that discussion there. Thank you, Alondra.
Thank you, Melinda. We do have a follow-up from CJ asking if, I think this was geared toward Ashley. He's asked if you can drop your contact information in the chat. I believe that's directed to you. Since
That sounds good. I will
Perfect.
do that.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank
Thanks.
you. Okay, CJ, Ashley's going to go ahead and drop that in the chat box for you. And we have another question from Igor. Do PACE and CTA have any plans to coordinate service schedules with UPS routes on 95th Street, as well as, he said, I believe there is a route that serves Amazon facilities near Joliet that runs from the Harvey Transportation Center.
So we have Lucas Regstead from our service planning department. Lucas, do you want to take that one?
And
Lucas, you might
I
be
can-
muted.
Yeah, if I can repeat the question for you, Lucas. So do PACE and CTA have any plans to coordinate service schedules with UPS routes on 95th Street? And also, Igor said, I believe there's a route that serves Amazon facilities near Joliet that runs from the Harvey Transportation Center.
Lucas said that mic is not working in the chat. I don't know that.
Okay, Lucas, if you would be so kind, could you drop your response to Igor's question in the chat box? That's okay. Sorry about that, technical difficulties.
And then on CTA's end, I don't personally know the answer to that question, but we can certainly get back with the response. Looks like Mike, you want to jump in there?
Sure. This is Mike Conley. I'll go ahead and jump in. We do operate a route that's called Route 169, which operates from 69th Street, Dan Ryan Red Line Station. And it serves the UPS facility in Hodgkins for the weekday shift changes. There's a specific schedule that is tied to those, timed, I should say, to those schedules of people working out there. And the bus, like I say, leaves from the connection at the Red Line, runs local along 69th Street going west, and then turns it to an express route that runs nonstop all the way out to that facility out there. And it does meet the shift change times. So we set the number of buses and the capacity of that route to the workforce levels during the holidays when UPS hires a lot of people and increases their workforce. We add additional buses to that route to make sure that we're able to meet their shift change times. That may not be what you're thinking about, but I think it was referred in the question to something for PACE running as well. And I think PACE has a similar service running out of one of your terminals. I think it was at Harvey, which was suggested.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to go ahead and jump into it's just to mirror what Mike just said. It's the same with our UPS route that operates via 95th Street from Red Line to UPS Hodgkins. That route is designed to meet shift times for those UPS employees. So we coordinate those schedules with UPS if we're able to on those existing services. And yes, there is a bus route that services the Amazon facility in Joliet that does operate from the Harvey Transportation Center. And again, that route is designed to meet some shift times at Amazon. But Lucas is going to go ahead for PACE and drop that information in the chat box for you. And
I just wanted to add
Oh.
one thing, Jessica,
Thank you.
that PACE, of course, will coordinate with CTA and the centers that we serve to make sure that we're both have a combined schedule and we're not operating over each other to give our customers the best service.
Thank you, Melinda. And it's a really good point where I know a few years ago in partnership with CTA on 95th Street, just with our local service, I believe east of Western, where we did coordinate with CTA to try and make sure that stops were at the same locations. We weren't, so we were partnering together on our stop. So to Melinda's point, I would anticipate the same. So that is all of the questions that we have in the actual Q&A box. So just like all public meetings, we're holding this from 5 to 7. Certainly we might have some attendees that might join us a little later. That's why we have, if we were in person, we'd all be in a room waiting for people to come and join when they can. So we are going to keep the meeting open until 7 o'clock. Should folks want to join, I actually see a lot of attendees have already jumped off. So they've heard what they want to hear and they've had their questions answered. We do have another question that just came in. Thank you, Andrea Paxton. So Andrea said she is representation of the Harvey Area Chamber of Commerce and the Illinois Black Wall Street. And she also emailed a question on the bus and train schedules to Amazon and some other job sites in the far south side. So could be referencing some metric questions as well. I believe that's, she just wanted to let us know she did have some questions emailed over to us. Thank you, Andrea. So what we're going to do now is, since we have answered all of the questions, again, I want everyone who's in attendance to feel free to go ahead and continue doing that. Put your questions in there if you'd like. We are going to go ahead now. Since we do have time, we'll go ahead and allow, if you'd like to speak and ask a question. Maybe you were having some technical difficulties and didn't see the Q&A box pop up on your screen. Or possibly just wasn't working for you. We all know technical difficulties do happen. So if you would like to go ahead and speak, ask a question, a comment about the South Halsted project, you can go ahead and raise your hand. We'll go ahead and try and call on you in the order that you've raised your hands. We would ask that you try and keep the comments or questions to South Halsted. If you do have anything unrelated to South Halsted, please feel free to ask, and staff can always follow up with you later on that. That's what we're here for. So I guess I'll leave it to the team if we want to see if any Q&As come in, anyone raises their hand. Again, we might have some attendees jump in a little later. We'll kind of be on the lookout for that. And until then, it's up to you guys what you want to do. Put a little jazz on, wait to see. Oh, we have a question. Thank you, CJ. Good question. What prompted the study? I'll leave that to anyone who'd like to answer that. Anyone can answer that.
I think I'll tag team this with my counterparts at CTA, but we kind of went over this, in the presentation, and it's important to reiterate it. I mean, the 352 along South Halsted is PACE's highest ridership route. So we always knew that this particular corridor was going to be destined for pulse service. It is, I think anybody who rides the service also knows that it's one of, or it is the only route in our system that we operate 24 hours a day. So we recognize how important transit service is to our constituents along the corridor. And I think, it was also said in the presentation that we're also recognizing that the folks using transit service along South Halsted are also experiencing 20% longer commute times than others in the region. And that is, jarring to see those numbers. And so we want to do our part to help shorten the commute times and make it the most comfortable as possible for our passengers. Emily or anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, all of those, I definitely second all of the things you said. I think South Halsted was identified for PACE as one of their pulse corridors several years ago when they laid out their regional plan for arterial rapid transit. And then on the CTA side, South Halsted was one of the alignments that was originally considered as part of the Red Line Extension project. It was dismissed for the for the alignment that we're currently going with, but it was noted that South Halsted is a really important corridor, and bus improvements on Halsted would sort of be like the right solution for transit riders. So I think, for those reasons and the ones that Charlotte mentioned is kind of what got us started with studying this important transit corridor.
I think one of the other kind of fun facts that, that popped out at the team as we were working through the study is when we were looking at the average amount of, car trips that are being taken on the corridor versus the number of people that are using transit on the corridor. It's about 50% of the overall vehicular traffic is represented in the number of transit users that are on the corridor. So that in and of itself is, speaks to the fact that, transit users just deserve a little bit of infrastructure to help get them moving quicker. It doesn't all need to belong to the car. So that in my mind was an important driving factor as we were working through some of the design alternatives. And that's a narrative that we're continuing to push as we work with our partners at the Departments of Transportation.
And I will add one other thing, it's Melinda speaking, that what we are looking for is an overhaul of our service there, including going all the way down to the Harvey Transit Center, where we're investing a lot of funding to improve the Harvey Transit Center. And this line fits right into it, as well as service going up 294 up to the O'Hare area. So this is all part of a comprehensive plan.
I'm going to jump in real quick, just to make sure everyone is aware that to raise your hand, there is a button at the bottom of your screen. It's a hand symbol. If you'd like to click on that, that will let us know that you'd like to speak, and we have a button on our end to open up your mic. So we do have one. So CJ Pruitt.
Oh, hang on one second, Christina. We have another question in the Q&A.
Okay.
So we have a follow-up question from Igor, which I'm hoping if Lucas can drop something in the chat for him. He said he appreciates the answers. The reason why he was asking is that he's heard from some people who are trying to reach warehouse job sites like Hodgkins facility and the Amazon facility that getting to 9050 on Ryan and or Harvey TC isn't necessarily convenient, especially when they have night shifts and many services obviously aren't running and the service isn't as frequent for the service that does. He was hoping to get a sense if part of the improvements would be to make it easier for people to transfer to UPS and Amazon routes.
I think my mic's working now.
Yep.
So mainly just by running more trips on the Halsted corridor with the new Pulse service, that will provide more connection opportunities at major transfer points like Harvey, like 95th. And so that will kind of make that process easier to connect to those handful of trips on those other routes running out to UPS or Amazon, more remote destinations where people are going to go to work.
Thanks, Lucas. Thank you. And as Christina mentioned, we do have a hand raised. So again, as she said, if you want to raise your hand, Christina will go ahead and allow you to unmute and go ahead and unmute.
All right, CJ Pruitt, I'm going to.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I had too much to ask to type it. So I do know that certain routes such as the 151 or the 147, 146, they get on the outer drive, as well as the number 6 going south to the South Chicago area. So has this project considered having the 352, because the 352 is a long route because it goes through local traffic, congestion and then traffic lights, if you will. So have you considered having the 352 hop onto I-94, even I-57? Instead of going all the way local, because I know some of it goes down Western, which is actually Western is, here's a trivia, Western is the longest street that connects communities from north to south.
So I can take that one. So I again want to just say one of the reasons why we picked this route in particular for Pulse service is because of the high ridership numbers that we're actually seeing along Halsted. So I will say for the Pulse service, it was not considered to go on the highway. And I say that because we have so much local activity on the bus route. The other exciting thing is I think there's a lot of new generators that are also coming to the corridor. We've had a lot of good meetings with folks from the Andaleo Institute, as well as the Far South CDC, who have been working with us as part of the project to let us know about all the great investments that are coming along the corridor. We want to be there to bring people to those new destinations, to bring workers to those jobs, and we're committed to that local corridor. We want to be part of the fabric of the community. We don't want to bypass the community. We want to be there as a tool of economic development to bolster all the great things that are happening, and we can't really do that from the highway.
Well, here's an option. What about you have like on Ashland, the number 9, you have the local, and then you have the express, which is the X. So could you do something like that where to the gentleman's point that was talking about like the Hotchkiss in Amazon, which I'm quite familiar with that route as well. You have it where if you're trying to meet a schedule, you have the schedule for the express where then it doesn't go through local, but then you would have like the local 352.
Well, so that is part. So so let me say this. So we will have the express type service with the Pulse Halsted line. We'll only be stopping at every half mile. So that'll help speed up some of the service. And then we will have, as part of our service proposal, an underlying local 352 that will make all of the stops that the 352 makes today. Melinda mentioned some of the other things that we're working on PACE in terms of like developing some of our express network on the highways too. So you mentioned I-294. We do have services on some IDOT highways as well as I-55 and I-94. It's also our intent to look at putting expressway-based service on some of the other corridors in the region. So, as some more and more generators come online, like the Amazons of the world, I think we can look at those potentially for express services on our expressways, separate from the Pulse program in the future as well.
Thank you.
And just, I think just one thing to add, don't forget that the service will be faster because we have signal preemption on it. So we will be able to speed it up in that regard, but we'll have other service improvements, as Charlotte said, on 294. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Thanks, everybody. We did have a few more questions come into the Q&A box. Audrey Wennick, she is asking, would eliminating the planted medians have made it possible to allow dedicated lanes along the entire corridor without widening the road or taking any of the sidewalk space? Charlotte or Steve?
I can grab this one, Audrey. Good question. The answer is no. And basically the difference between the Q-jump design and a continuous bus lane is that in the Q-jump design, we're inserting a lane, but we're only inserting it on the near side of each intersection. I know that's kind of probably a little bit difficult to visualize abstractly, but it basically means that only 2 of the 4 kind of legs of Halsted Street at each intersection would have an extra lane added. And the way we make room for that extra lane is by shifting all the other lanes over a couple of feet, but there's not enough room at the other side of the street to add a lane on that side too. And so basically, and part of the reason for that is that there are no planted medians at the intersection itself. There is instead a left turn lane. And so there just wasn't enough room to do all of that. and have a continuous bus lane.
I think one of the other things too, that just eliminating the Planet medians wouldn't have solved the problem. In the city of Chicago, we would also have to eliminate on-street parking, and then take some of the additional right of way to make up that 11 feet that we would need for the bus lane. And, you know, based on the community feedback that we got during the first public meeting and kind of throughout this process, that was not something that people were very excited about.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Cheryl Jones. It looks like she jumped in a little late, so she wasn't sure if this was covered, but great question. Will the Pace South Halsted improvement go all the way down to Chicago Heights? Charlotte?
That is a really good question. So the Pulse corridor all the way down to Chicago Heights is kind of the phase 2 in our long range rapid transit plan. So the first phase of the Halsted corridor would be just to go from the 95th Street Red Line station down to Harvey TC. However, and Lucas, you're on here. I think we can talk about some of the recent service improvements that have occurred on 352 down to Chicago Heights. And the other great project that Melinda had mentioned that's also going to be supporting that southern leg of the current 352 is the improvements that we're making at the Harvey Transportation Center. I will say, as part of this project as well, we are not planning on modifying the frequencies, you know, making them any less between Chicago Heights and the Harvey TC. So Lucas, do you want to talk about the South Cook project?
Sure. So back in January of 2021, we were awarded some pilot funding as part of the Fair Transit South Cook project from Cook County to improve service frequency on the whole length of Route 352, which basically meant that we came close to doubling the number of trips on that route that went all the way to or from Chicago Heights, at least Monday through Saturday, and then also added some earlier and later trips that would extend farther south 7 days a week. So we made some significant improvements to that service a little over a year ago, and have seen pretty good ridership results from that, and have continued to operate that service since then.
Thank you, Lucas. Andrea just wanted to comment, great questions to Igor and CJ. Thank you, Andrea. CJ has asked, thank you for this public meeting. When can we expect to receive the slides and presentation from this meeting?
So the presentation will be available on the project website tomorrow. So it's pacebus.com/pulse, and also on the Pace YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you, Christina. From CJ, thank you for addressing all of the questions asked in the Q&A box. She has to leave for her local Beat Caps meeting. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful day to the project team. Thank you, CJ, for attending. Really appreciate it and all the great questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so Christina, I don't see any other hands raised. Looks like we've dropped down to very few attendees. So it looks like everyone's had their questions asked and answered. So no questions coming in, no hands raised. I think we're going to go ahead and, you know, ask individuals to fill out a comment form if they weren't, you know, if you didn't want to put in a question now, or maybe you just will think of your question later. We want to really thank everyone for participating in the public meeting and in the Q&A. Again, you can still submit questions, comments after the meeting. Just please, again, visit pacebus.com/pulse, click on the Pulse Halsted line. Or again, if you do not have that capability, to please call our project hotline at 847-364-3962 to leave questions or comments that way. we will go ahead, our project team will respond to any questions submitted through the comment form. And again, comments received through May 24th, 2022 will become part of the public meeting record. Again, thank you for everyone who's still on for participating in today's public meeting.
Jess,
Yes.
we have a hand raised from Bernice Charles.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for catching that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I have a two-part question. My first question is, what kind of layover will they have down at the 79th Street terminal down there? Because it's such a small terminal. I don't know if you guys are going to be expanding it. I joined this meeting late, so I don't know if you're going to be expanding that terminal or not. It's such a small terminal. And if you plan on expanding it, how many buses will be able to get in there, and will we be having a layover down there at 79th?
Thank you for that question. That is not something that I know the answer to, but I can certainly get back to you. I assume you're talking about the CTA turnaround where the 8 and the 8A meet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we can drop, let's see, can we drop the project email in the chat? I think it's up on, we have our phone number. I'm just wondering if there's an easy way to provide our email so that I can get an answer to you on that one, because that's not something that I know off the top of my head.
I'll put the project email into the chat.
Okay, then my second question was, I know this is a meeting for the public. Have PACE considered talking to the operators who will be operating the buses on these new Pulse routes?
I'll jump in, Ms. Charles. It's Melinda. Yeah, we will be having our planners come down once we get this all, get all the feedback, and once we know exactly what we're going to be doing, where we're going to be doing the stations and the amount of service. We will be meeting at the garage to get input from the drivers. And as far as your question regarding the 79th Street station, for PACE, most of our layovers will be at our new terminal once we get it complete in Harvey, which will be, just a beautiful terminal with lots of amenities, et cetera. So we will get that information out to the garage once we get that completed also.
Oh, okay, then. Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Charles. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not see any more hands raised, but correct me if I'm wrong if someone catches it real quick. Nothing in the Q&A, I've cleared it. Okay, so again, we do want to thank everyone for participating. Great questions, great comments. This meeting has been recorded and will be available on the project website, again, at pacebus.com/pulse. So we encourage you to go ahead and either fill out the comment form, go on the website, give us a call by May 24th so you can have your comments added to the public meeting record. And thank you again for attending, and everyone enjoy your evening.
Thanks, everybody.